very nice to be here and to come and talk to you about, really about projects. But first of all, Richard has introduced me. I'm currently the president of the Association for Language Learning. I've always lived on the borders of England and Wales, but I actually taught I started off in Wales, but taught most of my career in England. And when I was teaching in Wales, there was no difference in the curriculum, and now it's very different between England and Wales. But since I've retired, I've been working more in Wales because I really wanted to not stop doing projects when I retired, because I think projects are wonderful. It says here pupil engagement and enjoyment, and that's important, but it's actually not the most important thing, really. The most important thing is the kind of soft skills that come with it, the confidence, the realising that you can do it. You know, you can talk, you can actually work in the language, you can make friends, you can do something that's challenging. It's really wonderful to see how it brings out that side of pupils' engagement. And it also, because there's something slightly unusual, it raises the profile of languages within the school, which is always a good thing. I don't know if it's the same in Scotland, but languages feel very beleaguered, not particularly in Wales. At the moment there's a big push to introduce languages into the curriculum, but in England particularly, languages feel a bit beleaguered. We don't have the uptake. It's all rather circular. The grades aren't good. You can argue about the reasons, but the schools don't want children to do languages because they won't get good grades, and therefore, you know, when they're judged by the government, it's not good. So it's altogether can be a bit gloomy and doomy. So it's nice to show students really that, you know, the benefits of languages, and not just them, but the wider community, their schools, their head teachers, the governors, the press, anyone you can bring in. So, as I say, I'm a huge advocate for them. I'm going to talk about two slightly different types of projects. First of all, there's the ones, and ELAPSE is a bit in this category, that it's a collaboration of people working together. It produces resources which everyone can access, and it can be in a huge variety of different areas, but those resources will be there, they're free, and people can use them. But I've also going to talk about some rather smaller projects, also funded, which I was instrumental in setting up, and which are all perfectly replicable, and the resources are all available to you as well. And there's a whole range. I've got projects going from primary, secondary, and involvement of further education, which is where I finished my career, or, you know, I'm not sure the numbers are the same in Scotland. Our top 2 years are years 12 and 13. Is that the same?
It's not called that, but it's...
Well, it's the last 2 years of schools.
S5 and 6.
It's the highest.
S5 and 6 was.
Yeah. So because projects are great for transition as well, which is one of the themes of today, of introducing pupils at the primary stage to secondary, or secondary to tertiary, getting teachers and pupils to work across phases, because we've used a lot of older children to work with younger ones. There's all kinds of benefits, in which, quite frankly, I was looking at this last night. I think language is actually not the most important in some ways. In some ways it's the mechanism for doing it. It is important, of course it is, but it's not the only one. Okay, Richard, if you want to... Okay, so first of all I'm going to talk just briefly about a couple of projects that which are finished. Well, they're not finished because they're there for you to use, but they're ones that are actually on the ALL website. And the first one is Languages Futures. Now, this one was a project that was, first of all, supported by the Paul Hamlin Foundation, who then turned it over to ALL about 3 years ago. It started off in the east counties of England, and it's a very interesting project in the sense that it was an attempt to get a second language into English secondary schools when you perhaps didn't have the teacher capacity to do it. So what they've done is given the learners the choice of what language they'd like to learn. So in a classroom you may have people learning more than one language, and the teacher really becomes a facilitator for this. The big advantage of it is the last bullet points. Pupils taking responsibility for their own learning because they wanted to do it. And also in valuing community languages, because particularly in the eastern counties of England there's a very large number of Eastern European EU citizens. And it enabled them to study their own, well, perhaps not their first language because they may have been born in this country, but, you know, their heritage language, and get some acknowledgement for it. It depends on having native speakers available to come into the classroom to assist, because obviously the teacher can't possibly teach all the languages she might or he might find in the classroom. And this, of course, can be a bit of a problem because you may not have the native speakers in the area for the languages that students want to learn. And so we were part of a DFE-funded project called Click, Connect, Learn, which has just finished, evaluating the scope for having online mentoring, not just in languages, but they were looking at other subjects as well. The results of this are not, have not yet been published, but certainly if it's found to be effective, that would give languages futures a more secure base, I think. Dr. Rachel Hawkes, who possibly, she's very well known on our side, yes, she was involved in setting it up, and she's written an evaluation of it. And it's the autonomy of the learner and the ability to make a choice as motivators, which have really come out strongly. And she's made some suggestions about how you could transfer this to the normal classroom. I mean, for example, within reason, allowing students to choose the topic they're studying, or if not, that's not possible, the vocabulary they are going to learn for their vocabulary homework or whatever. Give them as much choice as possible in order to motivate them. Okay, Risha. Now, this is, can you see if you can get the trailer going? It's the top one. I just want the first minute or so.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world if it doesn't work. I'm always very suspicious about it.
Language Futures is an exciting
We haven't got it on the
approach
screen,
to
is the trouble.
language learning. One that has been designed to motivate and engage.
It's a great video. I mean,
Richard's enjoying it, yes.
why not?
I've got another one later, another couple later on, but not many of these.
But we'll be playing
Okay.
videos anyway, so should I go? Oh, you can't see anything.
You need to go out and get out.
Sorry?
Escape that presentation.
I escaped the presentation. Try that. So nothing's happening behind me, no?
No.
Lovely.
Or you can try, what is it, window and then 4, and then you get the duplicate choice. That would
Yeah.
If you duplicated your screen, I think, I'd probably the same with other presentations nowadays.
So
That's
hold
why
on.
somebody helped me.
Display and settings, that's what I normally do, and then extend these displays, duplicate. Can you see?
Right.
Okay, getting there.
Yeah, that looks like it, yes.
Each student and enable them to take responsibility for their own learning. Language Futures was first developed by Linton Village College in Cambridgeshire with the support of the Paul Hamlyn Foundation. A growing number of schools are now using and adapting the approach. Student choice is a core feature, with pupils choosing the language they wish to learn, linked to their own interests and aspirations. In some schools, Language Futures is used to help students develop their own community language.
The whole idea behind Language Futures is really just to encourage independence and to help them to learn skills they wouldn't normally learn in languages. It's just to flip it on its head.
Language Futures is an opportunity, was in Year 8, to choose a language of their choice as their second language. This means that the Language Futures teacher may be supporting pupils in their learning of a range of languages in one lesson. At the moment we have pupils learning Russian, Mandarin, Spanish and Italian,
That's
all in.
It's a very good, it's a nice little clip, and it's Richard's going to send around the presentations, which is fine, you've got all the links, but that gives you an idea.
Yes.
And as they say, it gives you a chance to do something in language lessons in the skills line you don't necessarily do. Okay, on a couple, Richard, then one more. Now this is one that is also an ALL one, which I don't know if you're familiar with, the Language Magician. It's a primary assessment game for assessing students' achievement in primary languages. It's been extremely successful. It was done. It was the lead party was the Goethe Institute, with partners from Italy, Spain. ALL was a partner as well. You weren't, in fact. In this one, no. And an Italian university. So it exists, this assessment game, in English, Spanish, German, French, and Italian. And it's something you don't use every week. It is an assessment tool, so perhaps every half term or every term. And I will show you. I'll get Richard going on this. If you can show us the trailer, it's right at the end. The top. It's the second.
This one? Oh, you can't see.
Yes, the one on the right hand side.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other one's a sing along, which is great fun and very good for European Day of Languages if you wanted something nice and easy to do.
I'm going to have to do the same again.
I'm sorry.
I don't know why it... I open the video,
I don't know if
changes.
it's the way I put it into the.
It's fine. Keep changes.
Yeah.
Can you see again now?
Not the sing along, no, that's because
No.
well, we can all sing along, but
Come on.
oops, the arrow's whizzing around.
That's it.
Yeah.
So all the links you'll get when we upload all the presentations.
And again, we'll just see it at the start on this one.
What would you say if a foreign languages test for primary pupils looked like this? A dark tower. An evil magician.
I will use the magic power of my hat to steal all the animals from the farm.
And animals needing to be saved by your pupils.
Quite some farm I always feel with these animals on it.
The pupils become young magicians themselves.
Oh, hello. It's so good to see you. Can you help? All of the animals are turned into door knockers.
You will never get your animals back.
Really, I think I can do that.
So it's all in levels.
At
You
least
can
I
work
can
out the
try.
power. It's like an ordinary video game.
Tablet. Tisch.
Ganso. Gatto.
I libri sono tra le finestre.
The girl is on the bike.
Yes, I can cast a spell now.
Just imagine, a pupil's language skills are the tools of rescue, regardless of how advanced or basic they may be.
So that you get the general idea. So the tower is in different levels, and it gets increasingly difficult, obviously, as you work to the top and liberate the final animals. The project has been very well received. It's already received an award from the German Erasmus agency for its quality, and it's in the running for one from Brussels. We haven't heard yet, for an overall one. It's being evaluated over a longer term, because the Goethe Institute was very keen not to do, because this is often a problem. It stops after 2 years, and you never know, what's going on. The country that's using it most is the UK, in all the different language versions. It's thousands of people are downloading. It's completely free. You'll find it on the Language Magician website. The teacher needs to set it up beforehand, otherwise you've got ages whilst the children are waiting for it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's partly what the first bit was, choosing their avatar and the hair and everything. That keeps them quiet until you're ready to go. It generates all the marking itself. You haven't got to do any work. It comes out with who answered what level they're at. And so it's been a great help to primary school teachers.
Yeah, the feedback in England, I know, in Wales has been the teachers I've met have been using this, and it's been incredible. Is this for primary schools? Jane?
Yes, but it's now found a use which we hadn't been anticipating in lower secondary, where teachers are using it as a baseline so that they can see themselves where the children are at. Because I don't know in Scotland, there's been quite a lot of issues in England with secondary school teachers feeling primary school have overestimated the standard the pupils are at. It's one of these things, isn't it? They are competent linguists. Well, that's there's quite a wide range of possibilities there. So it has started being used in secondary schools. It's free to them as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. The sing-along is fun. I'll leave you to look at that another time. Okay, you shall then. And this is one of my favourites, but we won't bother to click on this. You can have a look as well as this. Well, you've got to flick the code. They've invented a cookbook with a recipe from every country participating. The British one, the UK one, is a traditional English trifle with all the rest of the quantities done in pounds and ounces, because it's a very old recipe, so that the pupils can get a feel of sort of what it's like in the old magic days. So in fact, I really recommend you have a look at, because it's been extremely successful. Okay. Right, now I'm going to talk to you a bit about my two projects, which have been based on cookery and language learning. I taught in further education, and in the heady days when we loved being in the European Union in the 90s and the beginning of the 2000s, there was time in English schools. I was in England at that point, just over the border in Gloucestershire. Whatever you were learning, whatever vocational training, because you did, you were able, if the college was in favour, and mine was, I was the European officer in this one, you added a language module, and we were very successful in getting money from the programmes, the predecessors of Erasmus, to allow our pupils to go and do some work experience abroad. And one of the most successful ones was with our catering students, who learnt Italian, very much, I have to say, against their will to start with, because they normally loathed languages at school, and when told they were going to learn Italian from 3 till 4 on a Friday afternoon, because this was the only time it could be fitted in after they'd done their bit in the restaurant and cleared up and everything, you would have thought this was not going to be much of a fun hour, but in fact it was terrific, because they were so excited about going to Italy. They wanted to be able to ask for a beer, they wanted to be able to, survive. So it was a terrific motivational factor. And this project went on for 7 or 8 years. Every year we got the money, we sent them off. They stayed 3 weeks, they had a terrific time. Some of them went back for a 3-month stay the next year. And in 2010, when the government was having one of its usual panics about the language learning declining, there was a programme I'm not sure if it was extended to Scotland, called Links into Languages, which was offering funding for innovative approaches to getting students interested in learning a language. So a colleague and I thought, well, it works with the catering students. Would it work with younger students to introduce languages through a skill? And we went for cookery because we had the equipment, we had the kitchens and everything. We also had our secret weapon, which is fantastic, but you can do it without, and that was a celebrity chef. Because, again, he's been long retired now. In fact, he's over 80. But I don't know, so you may not have heard of Franco Terruccio, who ran the Walnut Tree, which was a Michelin-starred restaurant down by us in Abergavenny. And he had been up to my college, previously to award prizes in a restaurant competition. The college, it was nothing to do with the college, we were simply the venue for the prize award. But he heard about the Italian exchange, he wanted to meet the students, and he asked to see me and said, if ever I can help, don't hesitate. So I rang him up with a very unclear idea of what we were going to do, but he said yes straight away. So we put in an application to take a group of year 9s from our 3 feeder primary schools, because this part of Gloucestershire was all 11 to 16 with a tertiary college, which was us. Teach them Italian, which is a language they didn't know. Get them an NVQ qualification. Again, this no longer exists, and I'm not sure if you ever had it in Scotland. It was meant to be for assessing in the workplace language skills, and teach them some Italian and cookery. So off we went. It was about a 9-month project. It must have been, I think. Again, it was a ridiculously short amount of time, and I'd foolishly said that we would get these students level 1 in all 4 skills, because it was divided between the 4 skills. So we started off with teaching 12-week course of Italian to the students in their schools. They had to be interviewed to join the project, and that was really important. They were interviewed by Franco, the head of catering, and myself. And really to emphasise that this was something serious. Because of my commitment to get them all this language qualification, we asked the school teachers to choose good linguists, because we did need a bit of a help on this one. And also, I think it's very important that good linguists should be encouraged. I mean, this kind of vocational language is too often seen as, just a bit of an add-on for, the ones who are struggling. But, why shouldn't the good linguists have something fun and different to do? So they were all promising linguists, either in French and German. They didn't have any Italian. So they did their 12 weeks at their home school, and we were very lucky because we managed to find staff in those schools who could teach Italian, even though they weren't able to do it at the time. They came into college for 4 whole days with Franco, in which they cooked a meal and then ate it, you can see. And he was very keen on this side of it, the social skills of eating together, trying new things. He was very, he kept telling them they never find a husband if they weren't able to sit down and eat nicely. I don't know what the boys were going to do. It was interesting in 2010, nearly 50% of the cohort were boys, which again went rather against the trend in students doing languages. It's partly because we coincided with Gordon Ramsay and the sort of macho element in the kitchen, but it was extremely successful. After we'd done the 4 days with Franco, there was a break because they had to do their SATs, their standard attainment tests. But at the end of June, they all came back for a day and cooked a meal for 70 people, which was their parents, the funders, the college, anyone who we wanted to, show what a wonderful project this was, and served it in the college restaurant. We won a European language label for the project, and then we were very pleased to win the Mary Glasgow Prize for Curriculum Innovation. And besides, it's very nice to have your projects recognised. It enabled us to honour a promise which we'd rashly made at the beginning, that this course would involve a stay in Italy. When the money came through, the one thing you weren't allowed to spend it on, the linked to languages money, was to take them to the country where the language was spoken, which did seem a little strange. But anyway, because of the prize money, we were able 2 years later, you can go on, Michelle, we took them to Loreto, which is in the Marche, which was where Franco came from. That's Franco, he's sitting next to me at the front, and his wife Anne is on the sets in front of him. The students are all behind, and one thing I didn't mention was when we had them doing their cooking in the project, we had 2 Italian teachers in the classroom with them as language support, so if they didn't understand, and we were able to assess them in the workplace. Because level 1 was very basic. They had to understand if Franco was saying, bring me a knife or put that down over there or whatever, or ask very simple questions. So it was great to be actually able to do it, what it was meant for, the NVQ, and assess them in the workplace. So we were there for 5 days. We visited an olive oil plant. Franco, without telling me, had arranged a wine tasting. Well, they were all under 16. It didn't feature on my risk assessment, obviously. So what was I going to do? Particularly as he was teaching an adult group, which is why he was in the Marche. He had a journalist with him who was going to write up this adult school. So she looked at me and she said, "I won't say anything." So we let them have a little sip, because it was ridiculous to take them to a wine tasting without allowing them to taste it. And then we had to bring the teachers all had to bring the bottles of wine they bought for their parents in during our luggage, because of course they were too young to actually bring anything back from Italy. So that was it was a really successful project. We did it once again up at college. This time leaving out the promise to take them to Italy, because we knew that we weren't going to win another prize. We weren't going to be able to do it again. Okay. But the really successful thing about that was the confidence, was the fact they all said, we've made new friends, we would never have met these people from other schools if we hadn't gone together, we know we can cook, we cook at home, we like the food, we want to go on with our languages. And the college had actually had, underneath all this, they'd hoped that coming into our college would mean that students were aware of it when they changed schools at 16 and might come to us. And I have to say it was less successful there in the language department. We had the very good linguists, unfortunately, did what very good linguists all do in Gloucestershire, and is push off to the grammar schools in Gloucester the minute they get to 16, and we were offering A-level French. It just doesn't have the prestige of the college. So we didn't recruit anybody, unfortunately, to stay with us for languages, although we did encourage people to go and do languages elsewhere. But we had quite a lot of success in the catering, and 4 of them actually joined the college to study catering. So one of these things that perhaps we hadn't intended to do actually came out. And again, the most unexpected one was that Franco needed someone to help him in the kitchen during this day, and one of this college's students was volunteered to do it. And on the strength of having worked with him, he got some particularly stellar work placements in places like the Ritz and things in London, because he'd already worked with a celebrity chef. So, as I say, these things, they don't spin out of control, but they do take off in all sorts of different directions. So I then retired. I've been retired a few years now, and I had done nothing. You've done too far there, Richard. Then and out of the blue, I had a phone call from Franco, who I'd kept in touch with. That's him with the glasses there. That was the year he was 80, the year we did this. And he said, "I've come across this woman with money to promote." he's chair of the Abergavenny Food Festival, which is a big foodie festival down our way. And there was a European funded project, nothing to do with education, to promote the hospitality and tourism industry in Monmouthshire. That was the aim of it. And one of the things they wanted to do was to show students that there were job opportunities in this field in our area. So we thought, well, we could do a slimmed down version of Cucina, and we now calling it Eurocook, but it was much the same project, but on a very much smaller scale. And this time we were working in Wales with Monmouth Comprehensive School, year 8 this time, in time for their options, hoping them to persuade them to carry on. Again, we asked for good linguists simply because we haven't got time to do a great deal of language training. And we didn't promise anything rash about going to Italy or getting a language qualification, largely because the language qualifications post the Conservative government have all become exam-based, and there's nothing at the level 1 that we were doing a few years previously. But otherwise it ran much the same. Franco came in to school. They did Italian, 6 weeks of Italian, that was all. So very, very much targeted on the language of the kitchen. The other thing that had changed in 7 or 8 years was that there's no time in the curriculum to let them do this. In 2010, the schools were letting them out half a day, or a day in fact, most of it. No way was any school going to do that now. So we were down in the enrichment slot from 3 till 4. I suppose it did replicate the pressures of a commercial kitchen, because between 3 and 4, for 4 weeks, they cooked from scratch a 2-course meal. They always took their first course home with them, but sometimes the pudding was still too warm from the oven and they had to pick it up the following day. But we did it every day, and it was just amazing what you can do in the time. I brought some, there's a picture later, but I brought some booklets so you can see the kind of thing they were doing. Here you can see them making potato gnocchi with Franco from scratch, having cooked the potatoes. On you go, Rachel, there. That's them taking it home. Then they're making ravioli. They made it again from scratch with the pasta machines. And this was all in a home economics kitchen this time, not in a proper training kitchen. And with huge help from the staff. And there's one of the leaflets showing you the timings. So it was very tight, with only a quarter of an hour demonstration, half an hour cooking, clear up the kitchen. They had to clear the kitchen so it was ready for the next day, and they all had to catch their buses at 4:15 in order to get home, because we're a rural school and most of them weren't walking. The buses were coming for them and they had to go. So that really worked well, and the same things came out of it. The confidence. It's a huge school, Monmouth Comprehensive. It's nearly 2,000 pupils. So year 8 there were 400 pupils. So they didn't know each other. The 10 of them we selected. They made friends. They were very quiet the first week, but they soon gained confidence and worked with each other and Franco.
Year 8 is S2, I think.
Sorry, yeah, year 8 is second year of secondary school. Yeah. Yes, I must do say if I just wheel off the numbers. Yeah. Right, okay. And then we had a lunch like last time. It was very much the same. They did their exams, we came back, they cooked, and we served it in the town hall. We discovered right at the end, because our MP is called Davis, that we had his daughter in the group, which was handy, because that was another way to to spread the word. He came, you can see he's the bloke standing at the back, because they're always ready for publicity. He'd come down early to make sure he got a picture with Franco and the students. But again, it was a good. I'm not, why not? If he wants publicity, we wanted it too. We got a lot of publicity through the project, through the town council, for press releases and everything. And this project is going on. There's a school in Caerleon that's going to do a Welsh version with a Welsh celebrity chef, and a school in Caldicot, which is the other end of Monmouthshire, who are already linked with an Italian school and are hoping to do something similar. I can't put my hand on my heart and say it isn't a little bit of extra effort, but as long as you've got willing help and a slot like we had, my colleagues Charlotte and Amanda, who was the home economics teacher at Monmouth Comprehensive, were going to have to do something in that slot. So we slotted into a programme that was already there. They didn't have to create a time for us. And everybody from the head teacher down was really pleased with the programme. And the good thing on the language front is the students asked to go on learning Italian afterwards. And they've just completed their Welsh, their Language and Global Business, which is a WJEC, that's our Welsh exam board qualification at level 1. They did it in the enrichment slot this year. So that was, we were really pleased from the languages side about that. Okay, how am I doing for time? Right, onward. Right, now I'm going to talk about my primary Gruffalo projects. And of course, Julia Donaldson is really an adopted Scot, isn't she? Because she spent most of her life
Glasgow,
up Glasgow. Yeah. I was at university with her. We did drama and French together at Bristol University, so I've known her for a very long time. And she is a really talented linguist, not to mention writer, but she would think of herself more as a performer than just a writer. She's really keen on, and she's been up here quite recently, hasn't she, at the festival doing her...
She comes every year.
She does. I was hoping she'd still be here and I could stay with her, but she's not. But her Gruffalo shows and everything. So she's really keen on using her stories actively in the classroom. So we did a project in 2016 using the Gruffalo with primary school children. Now this was quite a large project because Monmouth, besides its Monmouth Comprehensive School, has 2 independent private schools, the Haberdashers Foundation ones. So we had 3 secondary schools involved, 8 feeder primary schools, some of them from over the border, just into England, where they already were learning another modern language, whereas the ones who came from the Welsh schools were doing Welsh. Because until 2021, and Richard knows all about this, so the primary modern languages doesn't exist in Wales. It's either Welsh if you're in an English medium school or vice versa, but it is coming in. So there was a lot of interest in seeing how this was going to work. And also in transition, again, this was a big theme for the secondary schools involved, because they were making contact with the pupils who would possibly come to them in September. It also allowed the sixth form students, that's the last 2 years of school, to act as teachers and help, and they gained an awful lot from it. They met each other, they gained in confidence, they enjoyed teaching, so it's successful there. Julia's written a multilingual version of the Gruffalo for her international publishers, in which it starts off. Do you all know the story? Yeah, I thought I really must have. It starts off in English, but every animal speaks a different language. So when the mouse meets the fox is French. So the mouse replies in French, the owl is German and the snake is Italian, and the Gruffalo is a Lowland Scot. Yes, it is. And then it works through backwards. So she came and did a performance of this, and also stayed all day to help the children. But what they're actually doing, they had a chance, the pupils on the day, to act out a scene in a language that they had already studied. That was either French or Welsh, depending on which side of the border they were. And also do a scene in a language that they didn't know. So on the left you can see them arriving, and the sixth formers had prepared all kinds of Gruffalo icebreaker activities, sort of, because everyone knows the story, it makes it easier. So they were able to identify the words for colours in different languages because they knew what colour the Gruffalo features were. And on the right-hand side, they're preparing their scenes. We did it as a radio play, recorded on iPads, because we thought asking them after just a couple of hours to stand up and act in front of 80 children they'd never met before was probably a step too far. So we had a radio play at the end with every scene in a different language. Okay. And that this one shows we had a special request from Julia for a performance in Welsh because she'd never heard the Gruffalo in Welsh. So the GCSE class from Monmouth Comprehensive Welsh class came out and did a semi-costumed performance of the Gruffalo in Welsh, and the one on the right is just one of the ones that the schools wanted with their pupils with it. It was a really successful day, and there's some of the evaluations that came out of it. Certainly the senior school pupils, they really got a lot out of working in this, as well as the primary ones. But again, you see, it's the skills that you don't think of in languages, it's the confidence, it's the working together that really come out. Okay, and then the final one, now that Global Futures, which is the Welsh government's programme for bringing languages into primary schools, is almost on us, they're very keen to have a look at how languages could be introduced into schools. And so we were part of a pilot, again using the Gruffalo, but only in German this time. And the school is, now year 5 is not the top year of primary, it's the next
P6.
Yeah. So they'd done no German at all, although they spoke Welsh and used Welsh throughout the day in classroom instructions and things. So how we did this was that the head of German and her sixth form pupils from Monmouth Comp went down in January and February, one afternoon a week, and started them off with looking at the Gruffalo, looking at colours, much like we'd started off the other project. And then the sixth form pupils came on their own. They did the lesson plans, which were checked by the teachers, and they came and taught 1 hour a week, the pupils. and the class teacher had was going to allow them to rehearse. And then we had a terrific bonus in that one of the teaching assistants at the school turned out to be a head of modern foreign languages who just moved to the area after maternity leave, and it was her way back into teaching. So we actually had somebody in the school who was a fluent German speaker, and I mean that was complete luck. And she took over obviously and as the rehearsal and everything. And because we had a bit of money, we were able to buy the costumes. You see them all looking really happy, and it culminated. They were happy. Go on, move on one, Richard, because they do look a bit. There they all are. Every child in the Year 5 class had a part. Two children took the part of the mouse, which is the largest one. Although the small boy who's in the centre knew everybody's part in every, not just the mouses. He could have done a solo rendition. He'd done so much about it. But all the ones who weren't a snake or the Gruffalo or whatever were dressed as woodland animals and did the narration bit. So everybody participated. We had a performance again for the great and the good and everybody in the day, and the parents again in the evening. So again, spreading it all out. And the school really took it to their hearts. If you just go on one more. We had a Gruffalo themed day, Gruffalo themed lunch, all lunch, and that's actually it's rather the end of it. But we had scrambled snake and owl ice cream. And they really went to town at the dinner ladies. It was a great scene as everybody was enjoying the lunch there. So that was a really big success. So much so that the EAS, which is the improvement service, is running with this, and the Debbie, who was our unexpected find and the teaching assistant, has now set up a German club in Year 5 and Year 6. The children who were in Year 5 and did this have just started at the comprehensive, so they've already had 2 years of a bit of German. And next year they're going to do a similar project down at the school with another book called A Star in a Jar, which is a children's book. Now the reason they've chosen that one is it's been translated into German. It's called Das Stern mein Freund, I think. But the author is a local girl, and her mother is one of the governors. So again, we've got a link with the school. So that's going ahead. It'll be on much the same sort of basis. Okay. And that horrendous link. Don't even attempt.
I'm not going to click on this.
No, don't. Yes. That's the languages features one. The resources from my very first cookery project are all still on the TES website. To be quite honest, I'm not sure how much. They're no practical use in the sense that the qualification that they were designed for no longer exists. But they would have some use if people were looking for ideas on the kind of activities that you might want students to do in the kitchen or in the restaurant. So if you'll find them in the free resources on the TES. Okay, and if I've got time, I'm finally going to talk a little bit about ELAPS. We get there in the end, the best things. Now you can talk a bit as well, Richard, if you want to. This is a great project. We're halfway through, aren't we, pretty well?
Almost.
Almost, yes. And the idea is to produce some training materials and some resources to encourage teachers to investigate a CLIL approach, and defining CLIL is an interesting one as well, but it's very much what PowerLanguage is doing, let's say that.
Yes, CLIL, do you know what does CLIL? It's up there, it's up there. I should look at
But you should never, especially with people who think they're CLIL specialists, if you start asking them what it is, then nobody can absolutely agree. I think it's developing all the time. But so it's teaching content in another language, in fact. So we're concentrating on primary and secondary transition, so that the materials will be, could be either way, but some more aimed at primary, some at secondary. There's going to be 20 sets of lessons for people to use, and that's the bit we're just completing now. So you'll have, and I think they're going to be, everyone's available in all the different languages.
5 languages,
in 5 languages, yes. They're not at the moment, but that's the hope.
Yeah.
There's a focus, as you can see, on the topics of literacy, numeracy, STEM, etc. And there's a good practice guide as well. So the idea is to try and make this approach accessible to people who think, that's just I'd love to try, but it's just yet one more thing in my crowded day. Could I actually do this? So it's to make it as easy as possible. There should be another one. Yes, and if we can we finish up with the last clip, if you can,
yes.
Richard, yeah. Which, if it works, is
I'll have to do.
You'll have to do the whole.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is fine.
Yes, so we're not on the screen, but that's the one. Yeah.
Oh, that's the Quill.
That's the Quill, yes.
Oh, lovely.
This
That's
is
the
one of
elapse.
this is this is you know, in the terrible jargon, output one, which was the good practice guide for teachers.
Intellectual output.
Sorry, intellectual output one. It's a very short video called "What is Quill?" So that's something that's up and done already. As I say, we're in the process of uploading the actual resources. Oh no, it's gone completely.
That's great. Should we have a coffee break now? Yes, good. Okay. Have you got it? Yeah.
As you have just found out, CLIL stands for Content and Language Integrated Learning. But what does that mean exactly? Research on CLIL is ongoing, which is why there are many different definitions today. However, the common one is that CLIL is a dual-focused educational approach in which an additional language is used for the learning and teaching of content and language, with the objective of promoting both content and language mastery to predefined levels. CLIL is the teaching of subjects to students in a language that is not their own. So there are two elements to look at here. The subject refers to anything from academic subjects like physics and history to life skills taught in a classroom context. The medium of instruction refers to the language used inside the classroom to explain the subject. Language is learned naturally, in context, and tied to motivation. Of course, definitions will continue to evolve. But how can CLIL be implemented in practice?
So you get the general idea. Now, I haven't got a prize to offer, but what nationality would you say the chap who was doing the commentary was?
You'll never guess.
You'll never guess.
Not American.
Not American, no. He's Austrian. And he's never been to America. It's extraordinary. His accent, everything is from you know, it's watching the television. Because if you meet him, you think he'd be an American.
He introduced himself, say, "Hey, my name is Ron." Well, the first time we met him, "Hi, my name is Ron. I'm Austrian." We all thought, "What?"
We're all thinking, have we got an American partner we didn't know about? You know, because it was really quite striking. But yes, so keep an eye on this because it's going to be a really useful project for teachers. I was actually at an ALL council meeting on Saturday talking to one of my colleagues who is very much teaching English as an additional language in schools because, of course, it's not, particularly, again, it's in the east of England, we're over in Peterborough, a huge number of children who are not mother tongue English, and they're using a CLIL approach in English in order to teach them subjects and the language at the same time. She's going to come and do some talk for me at Language World, which is our big conference in March in Manchester. So look out for that because you're all very welcome to come. We're also going to have a big focus on elapse because we shall be not completely finished but virtually finished. Yes, we shall be virtually finished by that's the aim. We have to be finished by November, I think, next year, don't
absolutely.
we? So by March we should be well into all the tangible outputs. It'll only be the evaluate only. It'll be the sort of finally finishing off ones. But it's going to be something really worth keeping your eye on, just for ideas made simple, because that's the idea. We're all very conscious of people's time and effort, and it's just trying to. And the next video by Ron goes into, well, now you've got the idea. How could you plan just one clear lesson? Just have a go, and there's indications of how to do it, how to choose the subject. So it's a really useful tool. Well, I hope I've convinced you that projects are worth a look. Mm-hmm. Even if it's not just for the languages, it does so much for it does so much skills. It does a lot for the teachers as well. I think teachers deserve a bit of fun,
absolutely.
in the classroom. So do think about it. Don't forget. I don't know if you must have the same, but they're perhaps not called further education colleges in Scotland.
Yeah.
If my experience is anything to go by, they're always desperate to make links with schools, primary, secondary, anything, and they're a great source of support. If you want to do a skills-based thing like the cookery or whatever, talk to your FE college. I'd be astonished if they didn't welcome you with open arms. They'll be thinking, students of the future, but that doesn't matter. You get an entree and you get the help you want. And also it allows students, perhaps like mine in the catering, to see, because I just to finish, I forgot to say that I said they went on to do the Monmouth ones. They went on to do Italian, but several of them also took up catering at GCSE. as a result of doing the project.
Yeah.
So it has all kinds of
Impact
benefits.
and
Yeah. So thank you very much. And if there's any questions either now or I'll be around all day, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
See, they're even. Yes. Thank you very much, Jean.